Hey everybody, Kelly here. So this pile here you're going to see at the end of the video. Well, you're going to see something extra because I found a couple pieces that fell on the floor. But this pile here you're going to see at the end of the video. I just wanted to come on to the beginning of the video and wish my dad a happy birthday today. You're not actually going to see him in this video because it's extremely hot out and we're not doing any outdoor projects. And we're also not doing any outdoor projects because this is his birthday and he should get to relax, right? Anyhow, so happy birthday to Dad. And we might be outside. We might be spraying some weeds or doing some silly little things like that. But for the most part, we're going to stay inside in the cool and quilt today. Well, I'm going to quilt. He's going to watch TV or read his book probably. He's a big reader, so... yeah, but anyhow, happy birthday, Dad. So this is the Cinnamon and Cream fabric line by Joanna Figueroa. Sorry, this is the Cinnamon and Cream fabric line by Joanna Figueroa. And it was it was a Jolly Bar. I can't remember the name of the pattern all of a sudden. I'll try to flash it on the screen if I can find it later. But it was a Fat Quarter Shop Jolly Bar pattern using Joanna Figueroa's Cinnamon and Cream fabric. The background was just a 5-yard cut that I had, or 3-yard cut that I had, and so I just felt like it went pretty well with her Jolly Bar fabrics, so I went ahead and used that and tried it, and I think it turned out pretty well. And then for the backing, I was going to use this for the back of the quilt as well, but I didn't quite have enough, so I just went through my stash and picked out a 5-yard cut here that I think is going to blend all right. And my plan right now, once I get it quilted, is I've left hopefully enough room on all 4 sides of this. I'm actually piecing it together in 4 pieces, and I've hopefully left enough room on this to be able to front it. Rather than doing a binding, I'm just gonna turn it over the front and bind it that way. I may come up with something else for the binding later, but I think I like this color well enough with that to go ahead and use it for a binding as well. If I can find something else that's going to pop more, I'll probably end up changing my mind, but it's kind of going to blend quite a bit, so usually for my binding I like to have something that stands out a little bit more, but we'll see. So anyhow, right now I'm just piecing these 4 pieces together for the backing, and then I'll start assembling the quilt and working on my quilt pattern. I'm usually pretty fast at getting my quilt backing and batting and top in place to be basted. But of course, the one time that I want to be able to front the quilt and have to have an equal amount of backing on all sides because I didn't make it extra large, of course that would be the one time that I would have a really hard time getting it centered. So I think I'm good now though. It may not be exactly equal, but I've got enough on all four sides to be able to front it. But again, I might change my mind and do a binding, but I just wanted to make sure that I actually am able to have enough if I want to. So I'm trying to, before I pin this, trying to think of what I have an idea for my quilting, and I want to go over that later when I get ready to do it, but I actually want to try to place my pins in a position not to have to move them in order to do the marking. And I don't really want to do the marking first because I want to have it pinned down so that I can move it around on the hard part of the table here to do my markings. I got loose hair there. Okay. Anyhow, so yeah, I'm just trying to think where I'm going to place my pins that's not going to be in my own way. Let's see. Had it all figured out the other day, and now I can't remember what I had figured out. So I've only done so many pins so far, just because I really have only done this quarter of the quilt right here. I just want to make sure my quilting, when I go to mark my lines, that I haven't got too many pins in the way. So I'm kind of going to do this one first, and then I'll pin the rest of them, or know how to, for sure, pin the rest of them. So, quilting plans. My thought right now is to do lines on the diagonals going this way on this section, going this way on this section. So I'll have a crosshatch kind of here in the center, but then my diamonds will actually be empty. So I think what I'll do with those is actually just stitch a few lines down each triangle, like right down the center, right down from point to point here, from point to point there. So it'll just be like one straight down the center, one to the point, one to the point, and then that way those lines, there will only be like a small gap between. I don't do a lot of really dense quilting. Every once in a while I might do like a hand quilting that's pretty dense, but usually that's with smaller projects. So, But for this one, I think I am going to literally start by going from point to point, and then out to that point there. And I am going to go ahead and mark my quilt for how I want to quilt it. A lot of people will do free motion quilting. I'm not good enough to do that, so I tend to do more cross hatches and a little bit of ruler work I can do, but more cross hatches, and try to come up with something that fits the quilt. And I always have to mark. I've just never been able to, well, I mean, I can do it with smaller projects, but not with a big project like this. So I am actually going to mark out my lines, and I'm going to use a friction pen. And once I put this friction pen on the fabric, I am committed. So I just like to take a final moment to be 100% sure that's what I want to do. And I'm 100% sure, so I'm going to go ahead and mark this out. I could also use chalk. It's not my preferred, and actually I might have to use chalk because this pen is out. Yep. Well, let's see. I don't like to use red. I do have a red friction pen, but I don't like to use red. I've got a yellow. It's not going to show up on this. And I have a navy blue. So let's see if this one will show or not. I'm just going to do it just enough that I can see the line. I don't need to make it real dark. And honestly, something like this I probably shouldn't have to mark, just because I'm going to go, and I didn't really want to do that. Now it's not going to come off. Oh. So I marked a really bulky spot with ink. The problem with friction pens is they do erase with heat, but they also can leave a bleach mark. So be very careful using them. Like I said, you're committed once you've started, just because of the fact that they'll leave that mark. Alright, let me get this point here. This is kind of where I was saying I really shouldn't have to draw a line. I should be able to go from point to point without too much trouble. Just following along this point to point. I do kind of need to mark the background, because like this is a full square right here, so I don't really have a point right here. But I do have a point right there. And as long as my ruler's on all the other points, I'm going to go ahead and mark it here on the background. And then I'll just follow along there. But I'll go ahead and mark it here on this background. I don't know. Don't really need to. These are more stitching the ditch along the half square. I should mark it across the brown here. I don't know that it'll show up real well with the blue, but we'll see. Yeah, I guess it kind of showed up. Alright, continuing on with that, stitching the ditch, stitching the ditch. This is ditch, and I need to go across this. And I moved my ruler. Gosh darn it. Well, hopefully I can okay, or it doesn't bleach out too much. Alright, so that's my first 3 lines. And then we go in the other direction. Up with the ditch, lined up with the points. So for the center of the quilt, I'm just going to do just a diagonal running straight down these patches, stitching the ditch, come back up in the background. Actually, I think I got that in reverse. Go down the backgrounds, stitching the ditch up to the colored diagonals, then up, back, dot. So, I don't know, it's gonna look kind of different, so I'm not real sure about that. Because it's all one direction. I almost wonder if it would look better if I did actually cross-hatch this center part as well. I don't know. I'll see once this is quilted down if it looks too one directional. Then I'll probably come back in and cross hatch it. Alright, well, let's get to quilting and see what happens. Here we are 2 hours later, and I'm finally ready to begin quilting, which I'm actually not going to do now because it's 2 hours later and I'm getting kind of tired. But I have got it pinned and marked out for the quilting that I want to do. And so next step will be sitting down at the machine and getting it quilted. This is where I really wish that I was better at free motion quilting, that I could do an 80 by 80 quilt free motion and not have to mark it all out. It's also kind of where I wish like I will always afford to use fusible batting. This is actually just, I don't know, some cheap roll that I got from Walmart, and so it's not fusible. I could have put fusible powder on it and then ironed it all down, but it's like by the time I do that, sometimes with these huge projects, it's probably easier just to pin it. If it had been just this little star right here, I absolutely would have just used some fusible powder and ironed it down and then gone off on quilting it and tried to do it without marking. But even when I am just doing a straight line stitching, I like to mark just so that I remind myself where I need to turn and what exactly. I mean, I didn't do the line here because I'm gonna just follow the stitch in the ditch over and then back up into here. So it's basically very much a rectangle, like a rectangle on the outside, a rectangle on the inside, same on the opposite star here, and then I will have to do the lines down the center. And actually, oops, I missed a line right there. I was gonna say it was a 12 patch, not a 9 patch. What's going on? So I put my ruler away already, but I'll just give myself a line to go from point to point. So far, a lot of friction pens. Ooh, and actually I just picked up the wrong pen. Ah! Yep. So hopefully I can get that. Yeah, okay. I was like, wait. That jar should only have a certain kind of pen in it, just for this exact reason. Technically it's an erasable friction pen. I think it's just because when you're erasing, it creates enough heat to take it back off again. But anyhow, and so this was the pen that I was using. I just want to do a really thin mark to help guide myself along the straight line. And there's guides you can get for the machines and all that. I just don't have one that's this big. So, and actually, you know what? I must not have been. I think I'm getting too tired and need to go do something else because I forgot this line as well. Anyhow, so that'll create, and actually it's a 16 patch. I was thinking 12, but it's a 16 patch inside. So now I just have to think about what thread I want to use. If I maybe will do a variegated thread. I don't know, I'm a little, I don't always like to do a variegated thread on a quilt unless maybe it's a solid background and I want to see the variation in thread. Otherwise, it's always my luck that I get the brown when I'm on the brown, and the green when I'm on the green, you know, or the vice versa. I want the green when I'm on the green, but I get brown. So I don't know, we'll see. I've got one that kind of blends with all this, so I might do that. Or my other thought was to do a different color with the outside. So this is actually going to be, when I stitch along this border right here, I'm actually going to connect over to this line and then stitch down this side. So this will be like a rectangle in here and a rectangle right there. But then this outside part, I actually will have to come along and stitch it later. And so I've kind of thought about maybe doing that in a different color than I actually do the star. But I expect that these two lines right here on each square block will have to be the same thread as my star. So I don't know. And all of this in here, I have to come back and do this line on its own and this line on its own. And so I may choose to do a different color with those. But we'll see. Anyhow, 2 hours later, here we are. I've got it prepped for quilting, but not quilted yet. So let's get started on that. So this is where I am barely even through doing the very middle part. Just started to quilt here and I'm barely even through a little bit of it and I've already disappointed in myself. So was trying to do the free motion, and I'm not really doing free motion all around, etc., but I was trying to kind of go straight line down, or straight line down to here, down through here, and then back up. Try to use the free motion foot so that I didn't have to travel in one direction and just constantly turn the quilt around. But that's not working for me because I just am not, I don't know, I'm kind of wanting it to be perfectly straight, and I'm having a lot of kind of weeble wobble issues. So this is where I get to thinking I just need to put my quilting foot on and turn the quilt every time I turn around. So that's kind of a pain in the butt though with an 80 by 80 quilt. That's an awful lot to continuously have to bunch up into the machine's throat here because I want to go one direction, you know, sew down the colored patches here and sew to here and then go back and sew up just a little bit and then come down the colored patches and then sew down to here and then go back and zigzag back and forth. And so that's constantly having to turn the quilt then so that you can travel in the same direction. I was kind of hoping that being able to use this foot would give me that freedom of motion to move back and forth while keeping the majority of this quilt, just one side rolled up and the other side over here kind of bunched up. But it looks like in order to get the quality that I want, I'm going to have to put my walking foot on and do a lot of extra work to continuously turn the quilts all around and fit in this tiny little throat space there. I really should get a new machine, but money. I really would like to get a long arm, but money. So, and until I get a lot more talented at it, I just can't justify spending the money. So, anyhow, I guess, I don't know, part of me says I messed up already. I might as well continue. And make this my big 80 by 80 practice quilt. But yeah, my stitches aren't regulated. It's not too terrible. At least they're all they're all pretty small. I don't have like a huge 1/4 inch stitch. I don't know, decisions. Press on doing it this way or go back to what I know how to do that costs me a lot more work. I don't know, part of me says I would have been better off just free motion quilting, period, and just rambling through and doing whatever I wanted to do. Trying to quilt a straight line. It's apparently not as easy. Okay, well, I finished the quilting on my star quilt here. I think it's, what is it, cinnamon twist? It's Joanna Figueroa fabrics, and it was a pattern through Fat Quarter Shop using one of their Jolly Bars. So I finished the quilting on it. It's not great. It's actually not very good, but it's what I am capable of doing on my small Janome 4120. Is it 4120? Yeah, I think it's a 4120 domestic machine. And so technically I had just borrowed a friend's cutie frame, and it has about 3.5 inches of throat space when I put it on the cutie frame. So it's probably about 4 to 5 inches when you're trying to quilt free motion quilt it. And so I'm just not very good at it. It's really hard to wrestle the quilt underneath that small of a throat. Even if it was bigger, I probably have not had enough practice, and it's not something that I'm enjoying. I have practiced a few times with a friend's long arm, and I have really thought about wishing that I could do that I could buy one, but that just hasn't been an option yet. So in the meantime, I still mark out my quilts and then just kind of do them very basic quilting most of the time, and then I go through and iron off all the marks or throw it in the dryer when I'm done. And So that's kind of the stage I'm at right now. It's ironing off most of the marks. And so then tomorrow I will come along, and I'm actually going to take this quilt and I'm going to cut the batting away. Let me put my iron on there. I'm going to cut the batting away, and then I'm actually going to fold the front over and front this quilt. So I'll cut this part away, and I will square up my top a little bit more. It's pretty good, but I just want to make certain that it's okay. And so I'll cut the batting away, and then I will actually probably trim down my backing, and then I'll just fold it over and front it. It's really hard. I lost my, or I didn't lose it. I left my tripod somewhere, so I'm kind of holding the camera right now. Phone, camera, same thing. So kind of trying to demonstrate here, just because hopefully I'll be able to get some footage of actually cutting the batting, and then I will trim down the sides here and fold it in, and then create a much smaller binding, probably more like regular binding size, about half inch to 1/4 inch. I have to see how much I have on all 4 sides, because I think I got more on this side than I do on the other one. So, but yeah, that's my plan for tomorrow morning. And as you can see, I got some threads to cut and stuff like that, and just to kind of, let me give you a little bit more close up on the quilting, even though so I don't know if I can see like things like that. It's not terribly bad, but I just don't like the fact that I can see a lot of where I can't necessarily go straight, but I really have a hard time doing swirls or even E's and L's, and just I have a hard time doing that on a domestic machine, and trying to wrestle the quilt through just 4 inches of throat space. So I guess actually it's 5. When you put this machine on a cutie frame, it actually reduces it to about 3.5 inches. And so I was testing out one that a friend had, and I was thinking about maybe buying it from her, but it's just not gonna work, not with this machine anyhow. So, and if I have to buy something new, I'm actually thinking someday I would like to actually get a long arm. So anyhow, all right, well, just wanted to show you that little bit. And kind of, it's hard to see it here while I've got it laying on the table, but I've got kind of a different pattern on the center of it as well. And I think it's going to work out okay. It's not as densely quilted as I might have liked, but I think it'll do all right. It's an 80 by 80 inch quilt, so I actually probably would have been good to have it a little bit more quilted, but I think it'll be okay. I almost wish I would have done different color thread in the center. Like if I had gone one direction with one thread and another direction with a different, it might have kind of looked really nice in here. I did actually do a different, it's really hard to see because some of it, I tried to stitch in the ditch on some. Let's see, there in the center, I've actually done more of a rust, and then out here on the side it's actually more of a really light blonde. So, and then down the center I actually did a much darker color. Now when I get the close-ups you can really see how I'm not very stitch regulated and get a little bit wavy, all those sorts of things. Sorry, I probably shouldn't be moving, but yeah, see, like right there it's a little want. Anyhow, okay, can't think what else I want to say. I'm getting kind of tired. My schedule's been really off this week, so I'm a little confused what time it is. I think it's time to go to bed, so I'll see you in the morning. Ahead and hold my backing over to front the quilt. Normally at this time, I'm going to go ahead and talk while I change my thread and stuff. So normally at this time I would attach the binding and go on the other side and just do a hand binding on the back. So I would attach the binding on the front with the machine and then pull it around to the back and do a hand binding. But since this is a front facing, I'm honestly not really good at hiding my stitches on the back. That's why I try to match my thread fairly well. This one's actually a little bit dark, and that's fine because what I'm going to do is actually stitch it down with the sewing machine and just do a running stitch on the front, rather than trying to hide my stitches because I'm not real great at keeping them hidden. And normally I do that on the back. I will sew down the binding on the front and then do the hand binding on the back more because I just never really learned how to do it from the machine and be able to get a binding just right on both sides. So this way I'm not really worried about what the seam looks like on the back. But I've never really been great at doing the machine binding, and there's a technique for which you can do it that you don't have to then pull it around and bind it on the back. But I've never been really good at that particular technique, so I've always just attached the binding to the front and then hand finish the binding on the back. Or I would front it like this and then I will actually sew it down. So that's what I'm going to do right now. But first I'm going to change out my threads and change out my foot and get started here. So I'm forgetting where I'm putting stuff over here. Okay. Alright. So this was the machine that I was trying to use with the with the cutie frame on the other quilt that I was talking about. And so you can see here, there's not a whole lot of throat space to this. It's more than some. So I had a tiny bit of room, but by the time you put the frame in there, it's really not a lot. And I just was ending up getting frustrated, especially because I was having some trouble with the tension, and I was having a little bit of trouble with my bobbin kept getting, I don't know, it was kind of off track, and so it was the thread was getting thread knots on the back of the quilt, and so every time that happened I had to take the quilt off the frame in order to get to the bobbin inside the machine here, whereas with most long arms there's a way to get to the bobbin without having to tear everything apart, basically. So that's got me kind of thinking, how do I save some money and get a long arm? But I don't really do enough. I don't like sell a lot of quilts or anything like that, so, and I can't really justify buying a long arm for just making quilts for myself and family and friends. So we'll see. I've had this thought that I might try to sell some, but I don't know if that'll happen or not. So, and sometimes you think kind of see if you can figure out how to go for it and get something and see what happens, because it's not, I don't know, there's a lot of factors. Do I buy it without really having a business plan in mind? Do I formulate the business plan and then get it and find out that I'm not that great at it? I don't know. Actually, I don't really want to use my 1/4 inch foot, so I'll just use my okay. Now, my problem might be keeping it in the same spot. Getting fairly close without. So let's see. What I really want to do is move my needle over. It's been a while since I've done that, so I may have to come back after I remember how. Okay, I had to do a test because I wanted to be able to line my needle up to the left, and I want my foot to be able to stay on the binding. Let me restart that. I want my foot to be able to stay on the binding to keep the binding down, but I wanted to align my needle to the left so that I can get as close to the edge as I can. I probably had my hand in the way the whole time I was explaining that. So I want the foot to be able to keep my binding down, and I want the needle all the way to the left so that the seam can be, or, yeah, I guess it's not really a seam, but thread line can be, stitching line can be as close to the binding as nicely and neatly can be. It's going to be a little bit of distance. I could line it up more like the foot right on the edge. In fact, maybe I will. I just have some worries about the binding kind of like scooting like that, and then it's, you know, the stitch line's going to go off the front of it. I'm not really great at this stitching it either, but it's going to look better than my hand binding, so this is what I'm gonna go ahead and do. And it's been a long time since I've done it, so I am kind of nervous. Maybe I should do a practice one. I think I'm just gonna go for it. It's getting kind of late, so let's hope for the best here. Okay. Yep, so I'm right on. In fact, I'm almost wondering if I think I'm gonna go ahead and start over again. That is just a little too close for my comfort. So, and this is a really troublesome little bobbin, so whenever I have to start and stop fairly soon, I try to make sure that my bobbin is still good. I don't know, there's just something kind of sensitive about it. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and put the foot a little bit on top of my binding here. And now let's try to start. Yeah, I think that's going to be the right distance. It's really just a fraction. So I think we'll try to keep it just like that. And somewhere here I have a tin for my clips. And let's go ahead and actually I'm going to slow myself down just a little bit. I'm usually pretty quick, but I don't want to go too quick. I haven't done this in a while, so and it's already starting to do exactly what I was thinking, that I'm coming off of the fabric just I keep getting my hand in the way, coming off of the fabric just a little bit, and it's starting to bunch up here. So let me try to, in fact I may just go ahead and go back and try to restart a little. I may end up ripping some of this out, and I'm gonna go super slow, I feel like. But it's kind of one of those things that I'm really gonna see it, so I'm gonna try to. I could have maybe tried to blend the thread just a little bit better, and then it wouldn't have been as much of an issue, but I liked that the thread was just a little bit darker than the binding here. It just kind of blends with this leaf color here, and I liked that, so unfortunately that's going to make the thread stand out, so I need to be really careful. Also, I've got a lot of bunching over here, and it's a really big quilt, and it's one of the things that I found with quilting on this little domestic machine. I don't really have enough tables around me to carry all of this weight over here. And I know it's off camera right now, but it's a lot of weight over here. So I need to get like another table at the end there, if I'm going to do very many more on my little machine here. And I have a whole stack of them that I need to get done pretty soon. I think I figured out that I like to piece quilts more than I like to actually quilt the quilts, but I can't afford to send them to a long arm quilter either. I need to be doing it myself, and without the long arm it's not so easy or quick. I like hand quilting, but it is not quick. And I'm going off again. And now I'm going the other direction. Okay, I really feel like maybe I should have lined the binding up with the side of the foot here, and that would have maybe made a straighter line for me. It just feels like it would have been a lot of space that it was, flapping over. I guess I'll just keep adjusting here. I'm already at a stage where I'm kind of thinking, man, maybe I should have just hand sewn the stitch, the running stitch. Again. So let's take a look here. Yeah, so I can already see, not great. I'm in a little too far, I'm out a little too far. In a little too far, out a little too far. That's pretty much how this is probably gonna go here. So I'm just gonna keep doing my best. I'll come back and show you how I end. So I think I'm going to change plan again. I did well for a little while, and then it went off the rails again. And there, yada yada. So if I'm not sewing this way very well, I may as well just go ahead and hand bind it on the front. Although I do have a pretty good run there. But yeah, I'm finding too many spots where I suddenly go too close to the outside, so, and that's got way too much of a inside gap there. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and hand bind it. I was going to try to show you how big this quilt is, but I can't do it without laying it on the floor. and then it just kind of looks distorted. So I figured I would just come back in and try to give you a little bit close-up details on the quilting that I ended up doing, which is not fantastic. I would have liked to have done like swirls or a pattern of some type like that, but I ended up just going with straight lines, and it did kind of make a little bit of a neat effect there in the center. And of course the stars and the fabric itself just looks really pretty. So the quilting's so-so. It works, I guess I should say, but it's not really beautifully quilted, but it's gonna be okay. So, and I still got some threads I gotta get off and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's gonna take me a little bit to do the binding, so I just figured I'd show you a little bit of the quilting. And I actually want to kind of show you one of the other quilts that I was working on this week. So I'm a little weebly wobbly there too. There's a couple spots like that, but it's not, most of it doesn't stand out quite as bad as that one does. So, but yeah, let's look at the other quilt that I worked on this week. So I had an opportunity to borrow a friend's cutie frame in anticipation that I might be purchasing it from her. I actually was trying it out, and my Janome just is not of a good size to really use that frame for quilting. I can see that it's a good frame if you have the right machine. Mine, however, every time I had a thread problem, bobbin problem, sorry, I had to take the quilt off the frame and etc. And so anyhow, this is the quilt that I was using to practice on that frame. And this actually was a quilt that I had put together, I think November, something like that. And if I can find that video, I'll link it below. But it really was just using up the portion of a layer cake that I hadn't used for another quilt. So it was kind of just putting together something using those pieces, something really scrappy. So when it came time to want to practice on that cutie frame, I just pulled it out of the stack as one that I hadn't spent a lot of time making the quilt top, and so it wouldn't be traumatic if it didn't go right. And it didn't go right, so that was a wise decision on my part to pick something that I wasn't really gonna be upset if it didn't go quite right. So there's still a lot of loose threads that I can fix up a little bit. There's a lot of tension issues. I can maybe fix some of that. What I can't fix, I ended up putting a binding on this quilt, and I'm just gonna like throw it in the car as a car quilt or blanket, whatever you want to call it. Well, it's a quilt, not a blanket, but usually you would have a blanket in the car in case there was an emergency. Mine was getting a little bit worn, so I will probably just throw this in the car in its place. And the reason why, let me try to get some close-ups here on the quilting. A couple of them were not too bad. You can tell that's a rose. So a couple of spots were not that bad with the quilting, but a lot of it was really bad. I was having some extreme tension issues. In this line, this is actually kind of where I started, and you can see it kind of went off the rails with the machine and getting used to it. So, but a couple of them really didn't turn out too bad, but there's enough tension issues in here, yeah, so like some tension there. Also with the cutie frame, I couldn't quite get, you can't do as much length, so you have to really plan where you're gonna start and stop, and so I kind of got a gap there. That's more on me, just not being experienced enough. But yeah, so some of it wasn't too bad, but when I started to run into some tension issues, things went off the rails real fast. And my bobbin, the thread got caught up a couple of times, and of course I had to undo the whole quilt from the frame in order to get to my bobbin, and so I just wasn't real pleased with it. But that's more about my machine and my experience than it is about the frame itself. So I can see where that frame could be really beneficial. It's just that I probably need to concentrate on looking at getting a larger machine. But first I need to concentrate more on piecing more, selling some more quilts, and that sort of thing. So anyhow, I just wanted to show you kind of what I was working on this week. And you know what? If you back off a bit and don't look at the quilting so much, the fabric is beautiful. So there's that. But yeah, you can see here where I was just practicing some other types of stitches. You can see where I didn't, this was actually supposed to be go a little bit longer, but I don't have that kind of space under that machine's throat, so that's where it, you know, I had trouble figuring out how to stop myself from going into the area where you're going to hit the bar. And so I hit the edge of the frame, and it caused me to go straight. But a nautical themed quilt, that would look very pretty. So for my first time really doing any kind of meander or free motion quilting on a cutie frame, it didn't turn out terrible, but it just wasn't really, it's not really what I'm looking for with my little machine. So, but it's still a very pretty quilt. So I went ahead and did the binding on it, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw it in my car. And if the tension issues eventually cause problems and I start losing thread, you know, you can always take a quilt like this and you know, cut it up, make it into a bag. You can always remove that quilting that's giving you issues and try to requilt it, or like I said, make it into a bag. I could see myself even kind of cutting this up and making it into a couple of rugs. This would be really pretty. I've got a lot of these kind of colors in my house, so maybe not so much the pink, but the rose pink and the kind of aqua green blue colors. So yeah, but yeah, I think I'm just gonna end up kind of having it in my car, and so that'll be kind of cute laying in the back seat. So all right, I think before I go, I have one more thing to go over with you. So the last thing I wanted to go over with all my quilting friends, I actually started to take this out of the bag already, and then I thought, no, I should wait and unfold it on camera. So Soya had some scrap bags on, I think it was on the, well, no, I was thinking the D-Stash Saturday night, but I think it was actually when they were at the Bennertix warehouse. And so I'm pretty sure this is all from there. Let me take, yep, I think it is. So I started, like I said, I started to open up the big bag, but I thought, no, I should show everybody what good scraps we got in these scrap bags from Bennertix. So I would call this more than a scrap. This is even more than a fat eighth. So that's a pretty good length right there. And it's a very pretty piece of fabric. I love the blues and the purples, and anything flowers is very nice. So I will actually iron that one down and fold it into a fat eighth. So, next scrap. So I don't know that these are necessarily the same line, but I like them together. It's kind of a wild, it would be a little bit wild, but I like it. And this one right here certainly seems like it would go. In fact, that probably is the same line. If I can find a salvage, I would be able to tell you. Let's see, cherry, Goodry of cherry wood. Let's see, anything on here? Nope. Spring Garden Gnomes, designed by Andy Metz for canvas. Spring Garden Plaid. So, yeah, not really the same line, but boy, they would work together. So, I like that. I may just stack those both together there. Alright, so what else we got here? So now we are getting into some scraps. I actually have, I think I have this in another bundle, but it's always good to have a little piece extra, just in case you cut something wrong. So there's that. And then of course, more purple. I like that one too, kind of the purple and green. That actually would go really well with the flower one there. So I'll iron that up, put those together. And then, nice green. This actually looks like it's bigger than a layer cake. So that's kind of interesting. Interesting piece of scrap there. Sometimes I look at some of these and I think, that would be actually kind of interesting to put the wrong way around, even if you do applique pieces and need something that's a little bit lighter but want to have the texture to it. But yeah, I like that. And I think this goes with it too. So why don't I go ahead and put those pieces together. I could even see maybe doing something like that. Although if you use the plaid, that's a little bit too green with the... Anyhow, so we'll throw those over there. And here's a nice green. It's a good size scrap. Scrap bags are really nice if you like to do a lot of applique. I don't do a lot of applique, but I sometimes do enough that I will pull from some of the smaller pieces to use. Alright, let's see, what do we got here? Nice red. Ooh, I love those leaves. Show it that way. It'd be nicer if I get it ironed. That's a pretty one. And it looks like maybe a flint. Well, that one was holding it all in there, so. Oh, I love this one. Love that one. Oh, and actually it looks like 3 different pieces here, but in the same line. Cherry Goodry of Cherry Blossoms Quilting Studio. So I just saw that, and that's probably, which one was it? All of a sudden, this one. I think it's this one. Yep. So, I don't know if they're actually in the same line, but they sure are the same kind of colors, so that actually would probably go with that. And then, like I said, I would throw this in with it too. So that's a good set right there. just be in a scrap bag. That'll be pretty. And then some pineapples. That'll go with the green. So there might be some more green in here. So that's a little bit of a dark green to go with the pineapple there, but throw this in there, and that actually goes pretty well. And then let's see what else we got here. So some more of the sewing machine and the other prints that were with that. Actually, let me show you the other. So you saw the sewing machine, but let me show you the other prints. So that's a pretty purple flower. And the sewing machine. And the purple and pink, so that's the same one as this. And then this is the pink version. So that'd be pretty. We got 3 pieces, 4 pieces, and I think there were 3 in this other stack. 3, yep. So about 7 pieces so wide. And then a couple things that we can throw in with that. I think we're getting to a quilt top just with that bit of scraps right there. There's another red one. And what do we got here? Pink flamingos. Alright. So, I don't know if that was supposed to be in this same line. I don't think so. Just very similar colors. But that could be kind of neat with that. Actually, it might be part of this. But anyhow. And some more fabric of that style, so spring garden plaid. Alright, well, we are definitely getting a quilt top over there. And it looks like just a plain, very scrappy, but it's alright. And another plain gray. This actually could get mixed in with this one as well. Let's see, the sewing machines there. Yeah, so I think I'll mix that gray in with that. I think this gray is a grunge, so we'll probably keep it separate, but I'll throw this one with the quilt top there. And a pretty grunge. Looks like some purple that matches the green. Well, actually, maybe not. A little bit different style. I actually wonder about putting this with my new quilt top as well. Let's see. Don't really have a lot of purple in here, but there's some purple in the buttons. So that could be kind of intriguing. And of course there's the purple of the flowers, so I bet it is. And I'm going to do it even if it isn't, so there you go. And actually this one could kind of go, well, I don't really like it with the flowers. I like it more with my new quilt top. And every once in a while you get a scrap like that. So it's just stuffing, it's okay. Doesn't happen very often. And this one, oh, this is pretty. That's a pretty palm fronds, sort of, added ferns maybe. Prismatics by Marta Cortese. Alright, I like that one. Have to find some stuff to match that. Maybe the green? Where did I put the green? A little bit different green. We'll hang on to that somewhere. I'll find something. Alright, and it looks like just a nice navy blue. Iron that up and maybe put it with this color somehow. Alright. Couple of purples here. So there's another one of this purple. Get that ironed up and put it with my new quilt top. I'm going to keep saying that. That is definitely going to be a new quilt top. And I think I'll toss this one over with that too, just in case I think of something. This is a pretty scrap here too. It's pretty much a fat 1/8. So that's a good bit there. And let's see, this is the same kind of print as that red one. So I might throw it with the red one and see what we come up with there. Might make a cute little bag or a couple of blocks. And then make some other blocks that blend. Alright, throw that one with the red. And what do we got here? Ooh, a bird. So this is just a scrappy piece. Oh, I know the name of this line. Oh, I can't think of it. What is it? It's one that I really like too. I've got a layer cake of this, so I'll just throw this in with that. Why can't I think of the name of it? Okay, well, anyhow. And it looks like we got some, oh, here's another pineapple. So we got a little bit more of that. So that's good. And it looks like we got some heavyweight print, white on white. Alright, let's see if we can see. Oh, you're not going to be able to see. It's a little flower. Kind of. What's the name of it? See if I can see the name of the. It's an Eleanor Burns. Judy's Bloom by Eleanor Burns. So that's pretty. That's probably almost a yard right there. And then another yard, I think it's the same. Yep, same one. So that's nice. I'll iron those up, and then I've got a decent bit of backing for the quilt. And actually, or not backing, but background. Actually, I wonder, it's kind of be, no, actually it wouldn't be odd because there's flowers in here. Might as well use the flowers on the white on white. In fact, they're very much the same. I wonder, nope, different prints. I'm trying to think. Trying to keep it all straight. But it's the same type of style of flower, I guess is what I want to say. You know, like that, you know, versus petals, etc. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Sorry. Alright, well, I just wanted to show you the scraps from the Benetix bag that I got. And maybe my next video will actually be showing what I end up doing with this little bunch right here. The rest of it really is pretty scrappy, so I'll set those aside in my scrap bin. But I think most of this I could actually make into one quilt top. May not necessarily be an extremely fantastic pattern, but I could even see just doing something pretty basic where you just like took this right here and put a strip and another strip and then take the next one. Or I might cut them like a layer cake and come up with a layer cake pattern. We'll see. But honestly, I could really just see strips and then doing a border. But we'll see what we come up with. It will probably be lap quilt size, just because there's not enough here to really do anything real large. But there's a good amount for a lap quilt, so yeah. Alright, well, other than that, I've got one other thing that I should have done at the beginning of this video, but I'm going to put it here at the end and wish my dad a happy birthday today. So, yep. Dad's birthday, July 29th. So, happy birthday, Dad.